Hey everyone, it's Kyle here from Animist. I'm here today with Jillian Wisborg from Hamilton, Ontario. I met her recently at a video storytelling workshop I was doing, and I discovered that we had a shared interest in mushrooms, medicinal mushrooms. And she is a nutritionist, a herbalist, and a clinical iridologist. And Jillian, maybe you start off with saying, why you do what you do and what kind of got you into these fields.
Thank you so much, Kyle. It's awesome to be here. And what got me into natural health, herbal medicine, and holistic medicine was basically the path of my own health falling apart. So 10 years ago, I didn't have the best health. I was dealing with mild hypothyroidism, right? So my thyroid wasn't working that well. My metabolism was suffering.
Okay.
And I had a lot of fatigue issues, depression, moodiness. And I didn't really know that I had problems, actually. I just thought it was normal, right? And through discovering natural health, I was able to completely eradicate every single health concern that I ever thought was normal, and came to discover that a lot of the times the issues that we deal with, they're really just a symptom of something going on in our psyche or something going on in our body that's saying, hey, you're out of balance or something out of alignment, because we really are made for perfect health. I do not believe that we're meant to suffer, and I do see it as always possible to be able to get over anything that a person's dealing with health-wise.
Yeah, well, that's so true. Like, we are meant to flourish. Like, our natural state of being is like kind of what we get into when we meditate. But we live in this world today where we're thinking and planning and ruminating, and there's a lot of kind of mental turmoil going on in our heads. And also, we're living in these environments that are incredibly toxic, to our health. And kind of what you were saying about kind of depression and low energy, fatigue is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. Like, for me, in the winter, I notice mid-November, I notice a kind of a change. And in the winter, I notice I have to be out in the forest more and make the effort to get out to exercise and go to the gym every day. And I take a mushroom supplement in the winter. It helps increase my energy. In the summer, it's easy to kind of just feel great, right? But I find the winter, you really got to do more things to really kind of boost your spirit and your energy, because it's just the colder days, the darker days, the short days. It's harder on us. What do you recommend people do in the winter just to kind of boost their energy?
Well, it's interesting what you said. Yeah, there's all these kind of factors that are climactic that are changing, and for some people, winter's a really tough time. Other times, summer's a lot more difficult, and it depends a lot of the times on your constitution and even the diet that you use, right? So, for example, in the winter time, I really try to steer clear of having too many cold foods.
Okay.
Just as a general rule of thumb, right? So when we're looking at the macrobiotic diets or the seasonal approach to food is a huge resonance piece in making sure that you can overcome the seasonal changes. But I really gravitate towards vitamin D as an absolute essential. Vitamin D is one of the most essential things anybody could take throughout the winter, and here's why. We live right now in the Hamilton, Toronto area, right? So Southern Ontario in Canada, and in our region, we would have to be outside for fully the entire time that the sun is out to even get 1,000 IUs of vitamin D.
Really? Wow.
And our bodies, we need characteristically about 5,000 IUs a day to absorb, at least 2,000 to 5,000 IUs, depending on your body. And what that's going to do is it's going to be absorbed into your system to be able to catalyze and create hormones that keep your nervous system healthy, that keep your mind in clarity, right? So I know that I'll usually go and take a liquid vitamin D submersed in a sunflower oil, and that will make a huge difference. Just about anybody who lives in this region is deficient, right? And the lighter skinned you are, the easier it is to absorb the vitamin D. The darker skinned you are, that melanin protects you from absorbing even the sun's rays and the vitamin D. Okay. So you know what? Every single person needs it, but especially people that are Hispanic, people that are African American need it the most. And they're the ones that are usually suffering the most from these seasonal changes, you know, with depression and lethargy and fatigue and even, you know, just kind of isolating, right? All those are really symptoms of needing more sun. But it's the irony of, why do we feel isolated and alone and depressed? You know, we want to be inside. That's the opposite of what we want to do. We actually want to get out there, right? We want to get some sun, maybe go under like a special light to be able to get a little bit of that. So I think that's like the most fundamental, and that goes straight across the board. Everybody needs it.
Yeah, I find like working for myself, like I try to schedule my time, but when it's a beautiful day, I'll just kind of take a few hours off if I can, get out in the sun, go for a hike in the woods. I find that's really important, that when it is sunny, getting out and getting that, just that light on your skin, it just feels so energizing. And in the winter, they don't have many days like that. So it's important to, even if you just get it after lunch, out of the office for a short walk, I find it makes a big difference. And I definitely second the vitamin D. I take 3,000 IU a day in drops, and I feel it really boosts my mood, my energy, and I take it most of the year. I had a friend tell me that like it's good to even take in the summer if you're working in an office and you're inside most of the time, because kind of like what you were saying, it takes almost the full day. In the winter, you were saying more, it takes a full day to absorb the vitamin D, or would that be in the summer as well?
Nope. So in between the months of October till about April,
Okay.
you would need to be outside the full time that the sun is out to even get the bare minimum of
Wow.
what you need, right? So I usually, I'm someone that love diagnostics, love lab testing. I had my vitamin D tested a year ago. It was below what it was needed to be, 263.
Yep.
We wanted to at least be about 800 plus on the scale, right? But they won't tell you, the doctors won't tell you you're deficient unless you're usually about under 300 or so.
Okay.
But anything between 300 to 600 is still not optimal. You know, your body's still not producing the hormones that it needs to its best degree. Your mood's not as good as it could be potentially. So it's something to look into, but it's a $30 test to get that done.
Okay. You go to what kind of doctor for that?
Any doctor, your family physician, and you just get a requisite. They'll give it to you. Then you can just go get your blood taken, you know, whenever your availability is and whenever the labs are open.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Another thing I've kind of experimented with a lot in the winter is medicinal mushrooms. Right now I'm taking a supplement called Stamets 7, formulated by Paul Stamets' company, Fungi Perfecti. And I'm taking it in the winter for a couple of years. I start in November. I take it usually till about March. And it has, I think, turkey tail and cordyceps, red reishi, lion's mane, and a few other medicinal mushrooms. What do you recommend around mushrooms in terms of boosting energy, the adaptogenic effect they have?
For the winter time specifically?
Yeah, specifically for the winter, yeah.
For the winter, I really gravitate towards cordyceps. Absolutely. Even turkey tail. I love both of those because those are very strongly immunomodulating. All mushrooms are generally, but the way that I look into it is some of us, we want to have that the immune system effects. That's going to happen with just about any of those mushrooms that you just mentioned, right?
Nice.
And Stamets is really intelligent, and when he developed that blend, he developed it to cover the brain health, the nervous system, the heart, right, the respiratory system, the lungs. Like he covered it to include everything. So what I would be doing is I would be saying, okay, where am I at? Am I needing a little bit more regulation of my lungs and respiratory system? Or do I need more regulation of my heart? And depending on where I sit, I would be choosing the appropriate mushroom, because some mushrooms hit just about everything, and some mushrooms just hit a few, but really, really well. So you've probably even heard about like cordyceps, right? Like that's something that was prized by kings. Like this has been written about in the Chinese dynasties and taken by royalty. I actually remember meeting this one mycologist who told me that I think a pound of high quality cordyceps in Asia was going for about $2,000 a pound.
Wow. Okay.
Right? And really good quality reishi can sometimes be, it's cheaper, but just about as expensive. Now we're blessed because now in Canada, we have a lot more mycologists who are curating mushrooms in the forest or even in lab conditions, and they can kind of make it, you know, even more affordable for the average person. But I've really noticed actually in the wintertime, I like reishi quite a bit because it's just helping to make the spirit feel calm and at ease. In Chinese medicine, we associate reishi as increasing the shen of the person, or like the shine. So their spirit feels more like alive, right? And settled. So those people that they get a little bit zany, right? The little bit spun out, lacking mental clarity, they're hyperactive maybe, or they just kind of feel disturbed. Reishi mushroom is extremely beneficial. And I find that if we think about the characteristics of what winter can bring about us, you know, I know I'm the type of person that I have a lot of fire in my constitution. I'm very active, very mentally active. When I take reishi, like I just feel so like gently balanced.
Nice.
You know, not a sedating effect, but just calm. I get amazing sleeps. My dreams are so much more vivid. Because something about reishi too, this is going a bit off topic of, you know, the winter conversation, what it can do for the immune system. But I love reishi because it helps to restore your dream state.
Oh yeah, wow.
And a lot of people, there's a lot of people that you wouldn't know this, but they don't have real dreams. And I find dreams to be very important for just dipping into the subconscious mind, understanding what's going on, so that you can have a clear vision for your day and your week. So my mother, she was totally lacking dreams for a good 15 years.
Okay.
She took reishi mushroom. She had the first dream that she'd ever had in 12 years, right? And it was
not dreaming at all, or she just wasn't remembering her dreams?
She wasn't having dreams and she wasn't remembering.
Wow. Good.
Yeah. And that's usually a sign of the adrenals, which are part of your endocrine system. That's a sign of the adrenals being very deficient, right?
Okay.
So the person, all those things that you're describing about a person being fatigued, or even maybe their body metabolism isn't working right, they're feeling cold, right? Or maybe they get hot flashes and they feel drained and they need, you know, the stimulants, the coffees to get going.
Yeah.
When you gravitate towards something like reishi, that's going to boost your energy, but not artificially. It's really just giving your adrenals, your endocrine system, the food that it needs to restore itself. Because what a lot of adaptogenic herbs and mushrooms do is it's concentrated nutrients. So instead of you going and taking like a whole food vitamin or eating a lot of vegetables, I find that mushrooms and adaptogens in general, they're concentrated nutrients.
Okay.
And they make more of a punch than if you were to just do food alone. And
okay, so if someone wanted to say, remember their dreams better, have, you know, more clearer dreams, how much would you recommend they take? Because like I know in Stammet 7, there's maybe 150 some odd milligrams of reishi, and there's a huge mix of different mushrooms in there. Is there going to be enough of reishi in there to get the full effect, or should you take like a specific supplement that's like high amount of red reishi?
I like and prefer about 3 grams of reishi mushroom, 3 to 12 grams, depending on how powerful of an effect I'd like it to have.
And that's like every day?
You know what? You could do a dose of 10 grams and not do it again for like a week or 2.
Really?
Sometimes you will feel the effects. I've noticed personally with adaptogens, you can take it sometimes one time and you'll feel that effect for a shadowing of days, 2 days, 3 days, 7 days, depending on the source, depending on the quality. So for example, when I've taken Hishu Wu in the past,
okay,
and Hishu Wu is an herb that's found in China, very powerful for restoring apathy and depression.
Okay.
That herb, I notice it has an effect of up to 10 days if I take a teaspoon.
Oh.
Yeah.
What is it exactly?
So Hishu Wu is an herb that helps to cope with stress. It's a root that's found in China.
Okay.
And this herb has been used by quite a few people for expanding their lifespan. So it's a longevity tonic. There's different stories about guys who had gray hair where their hair went back to black. And I was somebody that I met a man 7 years ago, Massimo Rosati.
Yeah.
And he was an Italian man who he started taking this herb. His hair went from gray to jet black again. He was able to show me the photos, and it was just using this herb. But it's very powerful for preventing radiation from affecting your system.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's got a lot of concentrated like zinc, magnesium, and B vitamins.
Okay.
So that's actually part of the secret of why it even restores hair color. Is you're feeding the adrenals, you're feeding the testicles too to produce testosterone and to restore the hair color. But that herb, in all of its magic, I've noticed that has a very powerful effect for like decreasing headaches that are induced by travel. So, you know, people go far distances, they end up having like kind of like that jet lag.
Yeah.
This herb is really good for just cutting that.
And do you recommend someone take that for a period of time or ongoing?
So with adaptogenic herbs as well as mushrooms, the cool thing is a lot of these can be taken in small or large amounts, like for the rest of your life. There's some herbs that you can't do that. You take it for 2-3 weeks, maybe even a day, and that's it. But adaptogens are very safe in that you can take a little or a lot for every day or a long period of time.
And don't they usually have to build up in your system? You're saying with some of these herbs, you notice the effects right away?
Exactly. Yeah. So I have one YouTube video I put out about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It got quite a few hits. I didn't realize at the time that Hishu was such a big deal. But the video got 30,000 hits, right? 30,000 views.
Good for you.
And it was all about Hishu that I was speaking to because that herb saved my life.
Wow.
Like that herb, it is because of Hishu that I now have studied mushrooms and adaptogenic herbs and herbs in general. Because it was at a time where my food and diet was so dialed in. I was meditating, I was doing everything right, but I was still dealing with debilitating headaches, fatigue, depression. And it was all because of the radiation that was in my environment. It was because I was going to Mississauga and Toronto daily, where there's a lot of radiation, a lot of cell towers. And you know what? It was just totally impacting my health. And then a teaspoon of this herb, everything changed overnight. I went from having to nap and deal with 4-hour headaches to nothing. And I noticed as long as I was taking even a teaspoon of this herb every 2-3 weeks, I'm fine.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, electrosmog is a big issue now. Like living near cell towers, you know, there's some studies where cancer rates go way up. And now they're installing 5G networks, and there's a lot of controversy about how much more powerful these signals are and their effect on human health. And I noticed when I go out to the forest and my phone's on airplane mode, I just feel this instant sense of relaxation, getting away from all these signals. And especially if you live in an apartment these days, when I lived in an apartment in Vancouver, I'd pick up 30 signals in my place. It's just some of these routers people have that can just shoot the signal so far. They're so powerful. So yeah, I think it's important to have some herbs to kind of counterbalance that. And Hishu Wu sounds really interesting, that it can restore your energy. And it's interesting that kind of like sparked you on this journey.
Yeah, that was the herb that sparked me on the journey. And you think of even the people that deal with the opposite environments where the lighting is maybe fluorescent, or maybe it's just not the high quality, it's not full spectrum light, which does have an impact on our adrenals, on our endocrine system, on our hormonal system. That subtly drains our cup, right? But when you take things like reishi mushroom or Hishu Wu or even holy basil, those herbs are all helping to suddenly fill your cup up so you can withstand those modern day stressors, right?
And do you recommend people take them together or to kind of experiment with one at a time?
I love experimentation. I'm the type of person, I'm usually drawn to an herb.
Yep.
And then I don't necessarily know everything about it, but I later find out, oh, wow, this is incredible. So even with Hishu Wu, I had no idea that it would do anything for my headaches, my fatigue, right? No clue. But I figured it out after I took it, and then I started looking into it more and putting the dots together and
Okay.
found out, oh, this is EMF protecting, this is dealing with radiation. And the only time I was getting, the fatigue and the moodiness, impression, and like the headaches was when I was going into Toronto. It wasn't when I was in my own city of Hamilton, where there's considerably less of that electro smog.
Well, Hamilton's a kind of interesting area that you have this escarpment that rings the city, and then you have over 100 waterfalls coming off the escarpment. It's a very unique place. They call it the City of Waterfalls now, and I think it's really amazing. I visited about five or six of them now, and my goal is to hit at least 30 this year. I find just like sitting by a waterfall, meditating, just taking it all in, is incredibly refreshing.
It's so beautiful here. Yeah, it's quite the territory. And I think too, there's more people, in this area that are kind of waking up to the whole what herbs can do. And
Yeah.
I think we have, cannabis to thank for that, because it's been with this resurgence of, oh wow, cannabis used to be depicted as covering 80 different ailments,
Yeah.
right? Within different books over the years, and it was kind of shut down, and now it's resurged. So people are more on to this natural route and this natural approach.
Yeah, and when people say smoke cannabis, they also kind of opens their mind to different approaches too. I think that's happening in society too. Like especially with psychedelics, the more people experiment with that, the more perspectives that they can kind of open their mind to. It's interesting with that. So one of your workshops recently I went to, you talked a little bit about psilocybin mushrooms and microdosing. What do you recommend people use that for?
So microdosing is incredibly supportive for your creativity,
Yep.
for opening up the veil of what else you might want to be venturing into, because microdosing psilocybin, it helps to expand the brain, make new neural connections that weren't made before. And this is on an emotional level, a
Yeah.
mental level, and just with everything. So I've microdosed many times, and I often find that I sometimes have songs that come out. I so often end up singing something that I never could have thought I could have put together until I've had that microdose experience. And I also usually can solve problems a lot quicker in regards to interpersonal relationships, right? So if I'm kind of stuck on a problem with a friend and I don't know how to get around it, microdosing, it expands the brain and opens up new possibilities. So people that are feeling very stuck, right? I find microdosing is an incredible tool that has no visual changes. There's no strong hallucination effects whatsoever. It's just simply the amplification of your brain getting more turned on and creating new neural pathways.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think psilocybin has a huge amount of potential for helping kind of fix this epidemic of mental illness in our society today, reconnecting people to each other, to themselves, to nature around them. My own experiences with psilocybin is that it really has made me understand nature and feel more connected to nature, and has deepened my meditation practice. And I think that it's something that can be very helpful to people who struggle with depression, anxiety, and different mental ailments. And I think if it was used, especially in a ritualistic way, rather than say recreationally just to have fun and get messed up, I think it can really benefit people if it's used wisely. So it's interesting to see what happens with that, because cannabis now is legal. I guess now people are advocating, I've heard in Denver and California, for making psilocybin mushrooms legal. And I think, once these things can maybe legalize, maybe society can build rituals and institutions around them again, where people can have these rites of passages, these ceremonies that initiate them into different ways of perceiving the world around them. What do you think about that?
I think you're right on the money with that statement. It's just a case of, when we feel more connected to ourselves and to each other, we can actually progress, right? But when we're in this box of competition and, how you can hurt me in this fear-based place, which a lot of the times our society really promotes that within each one of us, right? I can't tell you how many people I've met that just seem so divided with themselves, where they have something that they know they really want to do and it feels right, but there's just all this doubt and all of this stagnancy, right? Where they can't make that first step. And mushrooms are the kind of thing where you can't help but leave changed if you allow the experience to, take over for you. And to me, that's simply just allowing that personal space and simplicity of, let's see what comes up. When I microdose or take mushrooms, every single time it's always as if there's there's new ideas, there's new thought streams. And when I allow myself to open to it, it's like everything's so much clearer. And I absolutely have noticed that anybody who I've introduced to mushrooms, they end up being more empathetic. Like they look out for their friends more. Like, for example, my own brother, he just tried mushrooms for the first time a month and a half ago.
Oh, yeah?
Right? Microdosing. And my brother has not done anything for me in the past 10 years. Right? As far as if I asked him for help, he's like, no, I'm busy, this and that. For the first time ever, my brother, I called him, I was like, Mark, I'm looking, need to go, get to this friend's house, pick something up, bring it back. And he's like, yeah, sure, of course. It's like, wow, that was a shot in the dark, and he took the opportunity to. And I acknowledged him for that. I said, Mark, do you realize that this is the first time you've ever done anything that's going out of your way for me? And he's like, oh my God, really? I'm like, yeah. Wow. And so I noticed the behavioral changes within him, and then even the conversations that have ensued from him to my parents of acknowledging, wow, Dad, I'm so sorry. I've been so hard on you. I've been judging you so much. Meanwhile, you've been nothing but a great dad, right? But that coming as a result of mushroom consciousness, mushroom awareness, opening him up more, right? When it's what's really changed here? Nothing. The situation is the exact same. It's just that he's changed, right? Something in him has shifted, right? Where it's not just about the me, what I want. It's more about, okay, how are we working together? What's this web, and how am I contributing to whatever my perceptions are? So mushrooms really take on the role of helping us to become responsible for, whatever is going on in our life. Or at least opening us up to, hey, if something's this way, there might be this other route. Might be a little bit scary, but the mushrooms are very much there to support us.
Yeah, I think mushrooms can be a catalyst today to really reconnect ourselves to each other and to the world around us and nature. I see in our society today, things are kind of accelerating, things are becoming more competitive, and it's kind of this race to nowhere, because we're all going to be doomed if we continue this way. If we keep fighting each other and competing with each other endlessly in this system, we're going to go extinct within a generation or two. We have to work together. We have to empathize with each other. We have to build these bonds. And I think a lot of the stuff that people do in a materialistic society in terms of consumption is really just to fill this void where you lack connection with other people and this feeling of enchantment in the world. And I think ceremonies using mushrooms could really help restore this connection to the tribe, to community in a new way, and allow the kind of new ways of thinking and connecting that can work in this very different 21st century technological world, where there's just so many people on the planet, and we're using so many resources, and we somehow have to rewild ourselves and be more connected to nature again. So yeah, something I'm very interested in. So you also do iridology. Maybe just explain what that is. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, and iridology is the analysis of the eyes to see what's going on in the body.
Okay.
So the eyes are constantly collecting information about what's going on. And how it does this is we usually think of our eyes as very flat, when in fact our eyes, they have different layers that can only be seen with certain lights. Yes. So with iridology, everything that happens in our body is recorded in our brain and then transmitted through our eyes. So the eyes are constantly changing, even in the colors, the ways that things look. I'd love to send you a photo of even, eyes that I've taken where you wouldn't believe what some of these green eyes or brown eyes or blue eyes really look like up close.
Okay.
But you have every single major organ system in the body shown in the eyes. So you have the brain area at the very top of the iris.
Okay.
You have the digestive system in and around the pupil. And then you have the kidneys, the liver, the spleen, the lungs, everything on the outside, and skin lymphatics. So imagine if with a single photo of your eyes that was clearly lit and magnified, so your eye wouldn't be this small right now, it'd be more like the size of my screen, right?
Yeah.
I take photos of the eyes and then I lay grids over top, and from there, this grid will pinpoint, okay, you know what, the lower bowel, the sigmoid colon, it's expanded out, it's ballooned a bit. So there's a bit of constipation in this area. It's more present, it's aggravating the groin, it's giving shooting pains down the leg,
yeah,
because of the radial effect. And then they have poor circulation that's leading to poor memory, right? So it's a snapshot of where a person's at, if their health is getting better, if there's healing going on, which you can absolutely see, or what's not in the best of health.
Very interesting. So if someone comes and sees you, is that usually what you start with, to get a full picture of their overall health?
Iridology is an amazing tool. So I love to use iridology for, I'd say 90% of all of my clients. And it's just because it's so simple. So for example, where it really shows up as like a master tool is I have so many clients that they're dealing with memory issues. And with a simple picture, it's going to break down. There's about 7 different areas in the eyes that show memory issues, right? You have the thyroid, you have the adrenals, you have how their circulation is, their pituitary gland. So from a single photo, I can pinpoint, oh, you know what? It's thyroid related, but their circulation's good. So then I know how I'm going to structure the nutrition and the herbal medicine programs.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe just to kind of sum things up, to kind of beat the winter blues, if someone's struggling with like low energy and fatigue, right, in the winter, what do you recommend overall what they could do?
Overall, the best thing is you want to get yourself some vitamin D.
Okay.
Right? That's incredible. You absolutely want to get this and opt for anywhere between 1,000 IUs to 10,000 IUs.
Okay.
And these are the numbers that Dr. Zoltan Rona put into his book, Sunshine Vitamin D. So this is not necessarily the recommended daily allowance that, Health Canada says to us.
Sure.
It's more getting into the therapeutic values that's actually going to change your levels on the blood tests and make you feel like, wow, vitamin D is making an impact, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is you want to find some sort of adaptogenic herb to help you deal with the change in the season. Okay. So an adaptogenic herb or mushroom, by definition, it helps the body cope with biological stress factors, chemical stress factors, environmental stress factors, which includes, the electricity smog, the electrosmog. This includes changes in climates and elevation, right? So if someone was climbing mountains, they may want to opt for rhodiola. They may want to opt for cordyceps, right? Okay. So you want to get the vitamin D, choose an adaptogen, number 2, and choose it according to what you uniquely need. If you need more, of a stimulating effect for the brain, choose something that's got more of that nootropic effect. If you want something that's mostly immunomodulating, then just about any mushroom or adaptogen will do. But get a clear picture of that. And then you touched on one of my favorites, and I wouldn't have thought of mushrooms for dealing with the winter blues, but since you brought it up, psilocybin. Psilocybin in a microdose form could be amazing to just get out of this stagnancy, stop feeling isolated, start feeling more alive, empowered, and enjoying that process of going and returning in, right? Because winter is still very much a time of self-reflection and realigning, where you want to go to. So to optimize that and have more of a clear vision, then yeah, absolutely, try microdosing mushrooms, right? And maybe even combining it with lion's mane for even more of the brain stimulating effects.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing all your knowledge, Jillian. Where can people find out more about what you do?
I have a website. My website is jillianwisborg.com, and I post all of my YouTube videos there, as well as I have over 30 different blogs that I've written on there. So that's a great way to reach out to me. And then I do love connecting on Facebook because I usually run a workshop every single week.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on today. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, Kyle. Mm.